Hi guys, how are you doing and welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up selective routing with WireGuard and pfSense. And the reason why I'm making this video is I made a couple of videos about setting up my own mail server, and I wanted to create a stable and reliable backup solution for that mail server. That mail server is running in a data center. If you haven't watched the videos, I will leave links to the videos below. Now, to create a backup of that mail server, I needed it to connect to my infrastructure back to my home because I want the backup offsite and I want to be able to replicate it to another site as well, right? So the way I did that is with pfSense. I installed WireGuard on my mail server. I have pfSense running with WireGuard, and I've set up a peer, configured some selective routes on the peer, and now my mail server is able to send only traffic dedicated to my network using that WireGuard tunnel. And a lot of you guys ask me, how did I set it up? Because I know pfSense and WireGuard. WireGuard is running natively on pfSense, of course. It's a package. And WireGuard doesn't have a server and client setup per se, right? Because every instance of WireGuard can be either a client or a server or both at the same time. Now, for the purpose of this video, I will name my pfSense firewall as my WireGuard server, right? Now, the mail server will be my WireGuard client. So let's discuss the architecture we are going to be using, and then we'll dive into the configuration in how I actually set this up. Let's get into it. Let me explain it with a quick diagram, right? So let's see, this is my pfSense. We have pfSense running on the left side, pfSense. And my pfSense, of course, has a WAN interface, right? So it has a WAN interface, but at the same time, it is running a WireGuard package. So it is, just for the sake of this video, again, we'll name it the WireGuard server. It is a tunnel with several peers connected to it. So this is WireGuard, the red color. All right. The internal configuration of my pfSense, of course, I have a LAN. And on that LAN, I have several VLANs. This is a VLAN. This is a VLAN. And this is a VLAN as well. So I'm using several VLANs internally to route traffic and, of course, secure things like IoT devices. Now, this is pfSense, and on that WireGuard configuration, I have set up peers. Every peer can be an endpoint device. In my case, I have a peer like my iPhone. That's a peer configuration. I also have a peer for my iPad, and I also have a peer for my mail server. This is the important one in this case, right? Because the other one, like I said, I'm doing the Road Warrior setup with pfSense, WireGuard, and WireGuard in sort of server mode. So I created a peer for my mail server. Now, my mail server lives in a data center. That's here. This is my mail server. Lives in a data center. It only has a WAN connection. That means it's only running a WAN connection here. And of course, if I want to create backups of my server, if you watch my previous videos, you know that I'm using active backup from Synology. This is a component installed on the server, and this wants to store its backups on a specific Synology, which is living in my LAN. This is my Synology living on one of the VLANs and connected to this VLAN, for example, right? Now, the IP range in this VLAN is 192.168.100/24. So obviously, this wants to connect to a IP address living in this subnet, because that's the way ActiveSync backup works. It's an agent component, wants to connect to the server. The server is running on my Synology here. All right, so the active backups wants to connect to an IP address of 192.168.100.20, so to speak. This is the IP address of my Synology here, 192.168.100.20. All right, how do we do that? Of course, I installed WireGuard here as well. But now I need to create a peer connection, a peer configuration, because that's the way WireGuard works. You need to set up the server and then, or the component, the package actually, and then you need to configure peers. And those are your actually connection points. So the mail server peer needs to be configured here. So this is a peer. And this peer connection, this is the same as this one, of course, as the mail server. And it needs to connect back to my pfSense. So this will connect and create a tunnel running here. Now I want only to route traffic from my mail server through the tunnel only and only if it's dedicated for this Synology, right? So that means in the peer configuration here, I can utilize a option. I will show you that in a minute, how it translates in a configuration file. There is an option in here which tells WireGuard, and the option is allowed IP. And this tells the WireGuard component on my mail server to create a route on the system. In this case, I will allow IP configuration or a subnet of 192.168.100.0/24. As you can see, this is the same IP my LAN is using, right? This is just to draw it like that. Okay, so that's the same IP range I specified in that IP allowed IP option in the WireGuard configuration on my client, on my mail server in this case. And this creates a route on the system. And now when the system or active backup wants to send traffic to my Synology living in my LAN, what will happen is, because now WireGuard has created a route on the system based on that allowed IP configuration in WireGuard, so active backup can safely send its traffic using that WireGuard tunnel and coming back to my internal LAN. And only this WireGuard, this active backup traffic will be routed to my internal NAS using that WireGuard tunnel because of this option we created in the configuration file of WireGuard on my mail server. If you want to route specific traffic to specific network using WireGuard, that's the allowed IP option you need to configure on the peer configuration, and that will take care of routing that traffic for you through that tunnel. Now that we know how we will configure, we need to configure things, right? The architectural phase, we have done that. We have done the whiteboard session. We know how to set it up. So let's take a look at the actual configuration. Now this is my pfSense server, my pfSense firewall with WireGuard installed, and I have several tunnels defined in here, but the tunnel which is connecting the different peers I'm using in my Road Warrior setup, so to speak, that's TUN WG0. And this tunnel has several peers configured in here. You can see this is the mail server peer, and every peer is a endpoint device, so to speak. So every endpoint device needs to have a IP address. Now that's the reason that you can see that the allowed IPs, those are the IPs of the endpoints I'm accepting traffic from on pfSense. In this case, the endpoint on my server has the IP address 192.168.160.9. This is the IP address I'm going to configure in the peer configuration on my mail server, and that's the way for WireGuard to know that it can accept traffic coming from that IP address. Now let's have a quick look at the WireGuard configuration on my mail server. This is the WireGuard setup. This corresponds of course with the peer configuration in pfSense, otherwise pfSense will not connect. And this goes for every WireGuard setup. It's not only depending on pfSense. So we have a interface here. That's the IP address for the interface I set up in pfSense. This is the IP address this WireGuard interface has. And we have the peer configuration. Now in the peer configuration in my mail server, that's the allowed IP option I configured in this, because this is the option which will allow you to route only specific traffic through that tunnel. This allowed IP option creates a route in the routing table of the system, and now when there is a component in the system which needs to reach that network, the system will route that traffic through the WireGuard tunnel, because that's what it's created in the routing table. So that's the way it works behind the scenes. You only need to be concerned about adding your specific network IPs or network ranges in here within that allowed IP, and those are the resources you want to reach from this peer. That's the idea behind that allowed IP option. And that's the way I've set up policy-based routing for my WireGuard setup for my mail server in order to create backups to my local Synology. WireGuard works the same if you install it on other platforms as well, because there's a configuration file, the options are the same. In this video, I only use pfSense, of course, as an example. But again, the same principles apply to every WireGuard setup you have, and you want to do the same with selective routing and policy-based network traffic. As always, thank you for watching. I hope you've learned something new from this video. Click on the like and subscribe buttons below this video. That helps out my channel a lot. And for now, take care, and I will see you soon in the next video. Bye.